I got a sad fucked up story depending on your definition of fucked up. It happened in my family, with my older brother. In before op faggot. In before op a summer fag. In before no walk the dinosaur. In before no Bel Air. I having pretty okay life. Parents love me, good grades, sports, have friends, good looking, grew up in a nice house in a nice neighborhood, got along good with parents. Love of my life who would be my future fiancé lived next door to me. Being 15 back 7 years ago, I wash my parent pride and joy, so is my little sister who was 8 at the time. My older brother, 22, however, was the opposite. He didn't have good grades, always in trouble, barely any friends, wasn't good at sports, 2 girlfriends we knew of, didn't get along good with parents, especially my dad, while my mom was more understanding with him. He used to smoke weed and could never keep a job. He got fired from every job he had, which pissed off my dad a lot. He was always rebellious even as kids. Dad got very hard on him because he wasn't good at sports and he quit the baseball team he was in. The coach said he didn't try to convince him to stay because he wasn't improving and didn't seem to care. As for my relationship with him, I got along with him pretty okay. Yeah, it was the typical sibling relationship of the older one being a dick sometimes, but that's brothers for you. With my little sister, he was very kind to her since she was the baby. She used to think of him as a superhero, calling him Spaceman, which is ironic since he has come home high on a few occasions and he would seem to be the most unlikely of heroes. He was the black sheep for the most part, and the rest of the family kind of looked down on him because he wasn't really doing anything with his life. I overheard my aunt and uncle talking about him. Uncle and aunt talking about my dad. Jim. I will remember these words, that my uncle said Jim's got 2 great kids plus 1 screw up. Aunt replies, who knows? Maybe Junior will straighten out. Uncle when he's either in prison or in a dumpster. I step in and tell my uncle not to talk bad about him. Even though he isn't really at his best. He's still my brother and your nephew, and you shouldn't saying horrible stuff about him. Uncle is all in shock because he was told off by his 15-year-old nephew. I never liked that smug bald bastard anyway. Later that day, since it was a family get-together, my brother ends up punching my cousin in the face. I guess since they said something to him he didn't like because he wasn't the type to snap unless he was provoked. Dad grabs him by the shirt and says, why the hell do you have to be the one causing trouble? It's always been you. Bro tries to explain. But Dad doesn't want to hear it. Bro has to leave. Tells me and my sister, see you guys in later. Fuck these assholes. Little sister is crying because her brother was angry and he was in fight. She was afraid he'd get hurt. Later that night Dad comes home with Mom. They start arguing, we all watch. Dad says, you're a failure, you know that, you're an embarrassment. Bro replies, like father, like son. Dad gets full-blown raged and grabs my bro by the neck and backhands him hard. My sister is screaming, and so is my mom. We all jump in to separate them with me yelling, get the fuck off him, Dad. My brother starts bleeding. My dad keeps hitting. My little sister jumps and holds my dad's arm. She gets knocked down. My brother gets strength out of nowhere and punches the shit out of my dad, literally breaks his nose. My bro runs to my sister to pick her up and calm her down. My dad then says, get your shit, you fucking piece of trash, and get the fuck out of this house. Brother says fuck you to dad. Packs his shit, everyone begs him not to go, but he does. Mom takes dad to hospital. At the hospital, my dad gets stitched up and files a police report on my brother, which makes no fucking sense since he threw him out. At this point, I'm with my friend in my house. She later becomes my fiancé, and I'm all pissed and shit. We try to cheer her up. She looks up at us and asks if Spaceman is going to return. I looked up at my friend and we said, maybe. She begins to cry some more. She really loves my big brother. Later we calm her down and watch SpongeBob with her. The police called, asked us to come down to station in the city. At this point, I'm shitting bricks. Little sister stays without next door neighbor's family, you know, my future wife's family. We get to the police station. I'm already thinking the worst. Cops tell us they found a body in an apartment and wanted to have someone confirm. My mom is hysterical, I'm already in tears, my dad wide-eyed, no tears, no nothing. Take us to the morgue. Open body bag. It's my brother. He's dead. My mom and I break down and start crying in each other's arms. Didn't see dad's reaction, but he didn't even comfort my mom. My brother found an apartment, started dealing drugs, and committed suicide by overdose. The hardest part of all was telling my 8-year-old sister that Spaceman isn't coming home. The funeral was very traumatic for her. Seeing our brother in a casket. My little sister builds the strength. Puts a flower in his front pocket and a picture she drew of my brother. Her. And I on the moon smiling. She takes it the hardest. So hard that she missed school many weeks at a time. Back in the apartment, my dad and I collect his things. I build up the balls to go in there. I find a lock box, but no key. I didn't say anything and took it with me. This is the only thing I have left of my big bro. 3 years go by. I'm 18 going to college. My little sister is 11 still happy and cheerful. My best friend and I were dating for 6 months. 3-year anniversary of bro's death is during the week. I bother to talk to my mom and sister about my bro. They miss him dearly. Especially my little sister who, even though is mature, still calls him Spaceman. I go to my dad to talk about him. This is what my dad says, well, your brother. He had a lot of problems. We tried to help, but sometimes you can't help everyone. I had high hopes for him when he was born, and all of that went down as he grew older. He wasn't happy, and he wasn't going to be anything. I come to terms that your brother is better off. I look at my dad in disbelief. I can't believe this man. My father, who I once called my hero when I was a kid, said that about his own son. I go upstairs and call my GF. She meets up and I tell her. She's like, WTF is wrong with your dad? Does he even give a shit? I get the lockbox that I found back at his place 3 years ago. Out of respect, I decided not to open it, but something told me that now was the time it had to be opened. There was something in that box. I had to find out. I didn't have the key. So I decided to break the lock. What I found would shed light into an area that was shrouded by false happiness. In my bro's lockbox, there was money, a journal and a gun. My brother kept his journal for a long time. I started to read. Almost all the entries was about my dad, about how he would force him to play sports, and all the bullshit in between. But also, my dad beat my brother whenever he didn't do his best. It explained the fact my brother would have marks on him, but we wouldn't have known, since he did get into fights. One night, when my sister was 6, he saw my dad watching her take a bath. He saw my dad do this on several occasions while jerking off. One day my dad walked in on her, but my bro called him. My dad rushed out. He told my dad, if you ever hurt her, I will fucking tell everyone and I will beat the shit out of you. My dad challenged him, and from then on my dad made his life hell. My dad tried to do it again, but my brother stopped him. My dad then turned his focus from my little sister and raped him many times. My dad lost all interest in her and went for my older bro. As he grew older he rebelled, but couldn't say anything because no one cared for him and everyone liked my dad. My dad singled my brother out to be abused. My brother sacrificed himself to spare my little sister the pain of being molested. After my brother left, he went into hiding. Got an apartment from some guy who he knew. He started to plot revenge on my dad. Started selling dope, bought himself a gun. He knew that, if he wasn't at the house to constantly butt heads with my dad, that my dad would go and molest our sister. He wanted to shoot my dad in the kneecaps and in the balls. Spaceman wanted to save her from the nasty monster. My dad also visited him in his apartment without telling him. The trauma of what my dad did to my bro got to him. He became an addict and eventually odd before he can save my sister. I showed my mother, she was in disbelief. She called my dad to come home because it was an emergency. She confronted him about it. Dates and logs. My dad was an honest man, he just knew how to keep secrets. So naturally when he lied, we knew. I punched my dad in the nose the same way and place my older bro did when he was alive. When he fell, I continued hitting him until my mom grabbed me and told me in tears that he's not worth it, Anon, stop. We called the cops and my dad was arrested. Today, my piece of shit father is still in prison. My mom met a firefighter and remarried. I'm getting ready to be a husband to my best friend for she is the love of my life and has stuck through this whole ordeal. My little sister is now in high school being a star student and in the cheerleading squad. She remembers my brother. She wrote an essay on an unlikely hero, while everyone didn't think highly of him who saved her was nominated for best essay and had read the essay aloud to the audience at the town square. It was about our older brother. She still calls him Spaceman. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe.